Good morning, 5th grade. Today we're going to continue reading in our novel, The Birch Bark House. Before we get started, we have a quick write. It says, do you have any brothers and sisters? What is your relationship like with them? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. Our focus for today is how does the narrator characterize Baby Niwu and Little Pinch? How are the characters similar and different? And by the end of the lesson, we want to be able to compare and contrast Pinch and Baby Niwu. Our vocabulary words for today are encounter, and that is an unexpected or a casual meeting with someone or something. So this person in the woods has encountered a bear. The next word is missionaries, and that's someone who tries to get someone else to become a Christian. Usually they move to a foreign country to tell people about Jesus. And then the last one is favor, and that's when you have a preference for something. So do you favor, this woman is trying to decide if she favors salad or cake. Which one does she like better? Go ahead and turn the page, and we're going to be reading pages 37 through 47 today. So we have a lot of reading to do, and we're going to be using our CSPS strategy. Oops, sorry. All right, I'm at the page break on page 37. Try to make this smaller. There we go. All right, page 37. Omakius has, she finished scraping the moose hide, and now she's going to tell us about her baby brother, Niwu. Niwu means fourth, and that was what they called the baby, but soon Grandma said the baby would have to have a name. The tiny boy was a spirit so far who had come to live here and was deciding whether or not to stay. Grandma told Omakius to be careful with him, little baby Niwu, because he might decide to go back to the other place if he thought his big sister was mean. So Omakius was very gentle with the baby. She rocked him in the branch-held tikinagun, and with great consideration. She gathered spongy moss and old oak punk to stuff into the cradle board and use as a diaper. She twirled and dangled the little web of sinew in the tobacco ties and bitten birch bark pretties that Grandma tied onto the head guard of the tikinagun. She fed Niwu tiny bits of the best food when Mama wasn't looking. She felt in her heart streams of love for the baby pouring through, and she begged her mother to let her take Niwu out and cart him to the lake on her hip. But her mother smiled and touched Omakius' hair gently and shook her head. Gaween, no, she was too young. Grandma gave her the willow doll instead and told her to let the baby sleep. And told her to let the baby sleep directly with her. Directed her to play with little Pinch. But she knew what that would mean. Pinch would jump on her back and yell, "Nadai, get moving!" He would pull her braids. He would use her as a practice bow and arrow target. He would tip over the rock children and rock people she made of specially piled lake pebbles. He would destroy her rock people village down by the beach. No, she didn't want to play with him. Little Pinch, never. Half the summer went by quickly after the visit from the bear. Omakius stayed thoughtful. She helped hoe the corn patch almost every day and never complained. She was kind, hard-working, patient, but she was also lost in her own thoughts. She startled when spoken to, went to sleep early and slept long. dreamed hard but couldn't remember the night's adventures, and she also had those dizzy moments that her grandma said meant she was special to the spirits. We'll stop right there because we have information about our character and setting. In box number 1, we would write about Omachius. We would say, Omachius is very gentle with baby Niwu and loved him very much. But she does not like to play with Pinch because he's mean. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And we have 2 quotes we could write down, one for baby Niwu and one for Pinch. The quote for the baby we can find on page 37. She felt in her heart streams of love for the baby pouring through, and she begged her mother to let her take Niwu out and cart him to the lake on her hip. You can also write down this quote on page 38 about Pinch. No, she didn't want to play with him. Little Pinch, never. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the setting. All right, and for the setting, we know that we're halfway through the summer and Omachius is being really thoughtful. And at the bottom of page 38, it says, one day her mother said to her grandmother, if she wasn't so young, I'd give her the charcoal. And when you give someone the charcoal, it's when in Native American culture, when you send them out into the woods with charcoal on their face, and it's their time where they're supposed to hear from nature. It's a sign of coming of age, like they're entering from childhood into adulthood. And so Omachius is only 7, and so her grandmother's like, no, she's too young. But they start to notice that Omachius is hearing from nature. And so in box 2, we would write, in the middle of the summer, Mama wonders if she should give Omachius the charcoal. But she decides that Omachius isn't old enough. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, you would write down this quote on page 38. Half of the summer went by quickly after the visit from the bear. Omachius stayed thoughtful. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. All right. And so then we're going to go to the bottom of page 39, where it talks about Omachius had a lot to think about because baby Niwu still didn't have a name. And so let's start reading. She had a lot to think about anyway, including a name for baby Niwu, who was getting restless, trying to crawl out of the cradle board, acting as though he were anxious to have a name. There were 7 or 8 people on the island who possessed the right to give names. Auntie Muskrat was one, Day Thunder, Swan, Old Man Migwans, and an ancient lady named Walbanique knew how to dream names. Mama had asked and each of them had tried, but no, not one of them had yet dreamed for a name for Niwu. For some reason, said Auntie Muskrat, that dream won't come. She even slept and fasted in the woods for a name, but the spirits were stubborn. Old Walbanique, who dreamed many names, had no name for the baby either, but she said she would give no other name until she found one for the boy. She searched her dreams. Meantime, baby Niwu grew. Omachius decided in secret that the naming was up to her. In play, when just the 2 of them were together, she gave her little brother names, bird names. Chickadee, she called him, Apichi, Robin, Little Junku, Sparrow, Goose Chick. He seemed to like all of his bird names, and when he heard them, he grinned and waved his chubby arms in delight. Omachius could hardly resist Niwu and play with him as often as she was allowed. There was something about the way he looked at her so sadly with big, soft eyes that made her want to cuddle him tight in her arms. There was something about the way he smiled when she made a face, surprised, so grateful, that made her kiss and touch his hair with great passion and indignation in his heart. He should have a name, and clearly he wanted out of his Tinkanagun. Omachius wanted to help him to freedom. We'll stop right there because we have information about our first problem. In the first part of box 3, you would write, Baby Niwu hasn't been given a name, and Omachius is anxious to take care of him all by herself. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Page 41. Her chance came. One morning later on in the summer, Omachius' mother, sister, grandma, and little Pinch all wanted to go to the village to see the big canoes that had arrived to unload furs at the traders. Omachius' father, Migwam, wasn't with these voyagers, but Mama hoped that they might have news of him. The thought itself made Mama so anxious that she got ready to go off in haste, though baby Niwu was still sleeping. "Why don't you leave Niwu with me?" Omachius asked at the last moment. "I don't want to go. I can take care of him. You'll get there faster." She saw Mama's thoughts falter. "You don't want to go?" "I don't." Angeline and Grandma were halfway down the path. Little Pinch was tugging on Mama's leg, whining for something to eat. "All right," Mama decided. "We'll be right back. Now don't do anything. Just rock him, Omachius, and play with him if he wakes up. Don't do anything." "Of course not," said Omachius, trying hard not to show how excited she was to have her baby brother Niwu all to herself. All right, and for the first solution in box 4, we would write, Omachius convinces her mother to let her babysit Niwu one afternoon. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. And now we're going to look for what happens when Omachius starts to babysit. She made herself tall and acted as grown-up as possible, rocked him with one hand gently, while she waved goodbye to Mama and kept rocking long after Mama rounded the corner and disappeared into the ferny forest growth. He didn't wake. She quit rocking, just stared at his slumbering face. His lashes were so long and stiff, his little chin so chubby, she wanted to stroke it. The skin of his cheeks so fine and delicate and soft she could hardly keep from brushing her lips across it. Tufts of silken hair stood out all over his head, and his breath was still sweet with milk. She touched him very gently. "Baby Niwu, Chickadee." The name popped into her mind. "Today I'll call you Chickadee," she said. His eyes opened as though he understood. His look was bright and filled with secret jokes. He gazed up into her face. For a long time they looked at one another. It was perfect. It was love. And then his face crumbled. One fat tear squeezed from his eye. His lower lip shook. Suddenly his mouth flew open and he bawled. Omachius was so close, so dreamy and happy, that the force of it nearly flipped her back head over heels. He squalled like a whirlwind, like a sudden wash of freezing spray, like a harsh wind weather, like a hot wall of sound. "Shh!" Omachius rocked and muttered and shushed and hummed and sang an old lullaby her mother used. Nothing worked. Baby Niwu screamed louder with increasing force. Omachius was alarmed. She'd never heard him scream like this, had she? What was wrong? Was something a biting fly, spider, tick, bee, something stinging or biting him inside the tight binding of his Tinkanagun? Only one way to find out. Unbind him, and that was forbidden. Still, as Niwu's miserable and now hysterical sobbing continued and even got stronger, she decided to make a grown-up decision and take Niwu from his cradle board, and so she did. She undid the twist in the vine and held him inside the beaded velvet wrapping. We'll stop right there because we have information about the problem. In the second part of box 3, you would write, Niwu starts to cry while Omachius is taking care of him, but she's not allowed to take him out of his Tinagan. All right, and so for the solution, we know that Omachius takes Niwu out of his Tinkinagun and undresses him. Press pause, write down your answer, and then go to the paragraph.